So after former President Obama claimed credit for our current economic boom yesterday, President Trump fired back, saying the boom is due to rolling back Obama's policies by cutting regulations and taxes. So who's right? Who cares? Think about it. The debate we're having isn't over how great things are. That ship has sailed. The media and the Dems see there's no more denying the success, so now it's about quibbling over credit. Fine, let the Dems have it. It won't win them election, but it might reduce their tears. Divorce rumors continue to escalate for the Obamas. Hopefully they can settle it like men.
Greg Gutfeld has reignited the debate over Barack Obama's legacy, taking aim at the contrast between the former president's inspiring image and the outcomes of his 2 terms in office. Known for his sharp humor and no-filter commentary, Gutfeld questions whether the promises of hope and change truly translated into meaningful reform. He critiques what he sees as media bias, political theater, and a legacy that may not have lived up to the hype. Instead of focusing on personality or popularity, Gutfeld urges viewers to look at the actual results: what was fixed, what was left undone, and whether the narrative matches reality. His take might be controversial, but it sparked a conversation that many believe is long overdue. Was Obama's legacy truly transformational, or was it just carefully managed perception? That's the question now being asked, and it's one that doesn't have a simple answer.
Is it helping the party to tell them to return to the rhetoric that helped them lose in 2024, like the dictator kind of stuff? It doesn't work on half the country. It's not going to get any better.
I don't think they have answers. You know, and is it me? He's looking banged up.
Yeah, he's been having
it's the first time.
rough.
It's something I've never seen with him. He looks scared.
Barack Obama is often credited with one of the most compelling political legacies in recent history. For many, his presidency felt like a highly rated Netflix original, praised, polished, and wrapped in inspiring speeches. But commentator Greg Gutfeld is challenging that narrative, pulling back the curtain on what he sees as a carefully crafted image that masked deeper issues. With his trademark wit and directness, Gutfeld argues that powerful words can't cover up policies that didn't deliver as promised. He isn't relying on theatrics, just straightforward questions, sharp observations, and a willingness to speak where others stay silent. In his view, it's time to look beyond the headlines and ask, did the results truly match the rhetoric?
You to believe, not in my ability to bring about change, but in yours. Yes, we can. Yes, we did. Yes, we can.
Oh, God. It was a moving speech, and the audience response equally moving. So if the Obama presidency were a film, this speech would be the climax. All that's missing is the horse, the sunset, the rousing closing music as the title card reads "The End," perhaps in cursive.
Let's set the record straight. For many, Barack Obama's presidency is remembered as a masterclass in image management, more presentation than policy. With a well-curated public persona, it often felt like he was running the country the way someone manages a LinkedIn profile: smooth, polished, and heavy on inspiration. Some admirers still speak of his legacy as if he solved every major issue, but political commentator Greg Gutfeld is cutting through that perception, asking a blunt question: beyond the speeches and social media moments, what did the policies really achieve? From an increase in drone activity to a focus on celebrity engagement, Gutfeld suggests the results didn't always match the reputation, and he's not afraid to say it out loud.
With somebody that you don't like and you try to lose them at the party, that's what Obama has done to Joe. He's lost them at the party, and now he's moving on, and then he tweets, and then you find out that he's tweeting about something else while you're at the party. And it's just, I think it's kind of mean to Joe. The second thing is that it's part of that "I told you" mechanism that only happens when things are good. Because do you think Obama would take any responsibility if the good times were actually bad?
Greg Gutfeld pulls back the curtain on Obama's presidency with the precision of someone finally reading the fine print on a too-good-to-be-true promise. Obama entered the White House on a wave of hope and change, but by the end, critics argue, that hope felt more like burnout, and change seemed out of reach. While the media praised the economy's recovery, many Americans felt it barely limped along. Wages stayed flat, job growth was slow, and for some, it felt like the golden era they were promised never really arrived. Yet the narrative in the headlines often painted a much rosier picture. Gutfeld isn't afraid to challenge that contrast, and He's asking viewers to take a second look at the legacy beneath the spotlight.
President Obama took another stand against evil yesterday, lashing out at ISIS, pernicious gang crime and human rights abuses in left-wing dictatorships like Venezuela and Cuba. I was kidding. He went after Fox News again.
I think the effort to suggest that the poor are sponges, leeches.
Let's talk about the stimulus plan, the massive economic boost that was supposed to jumpstart the country. Greg Gutfeld likens it to tossing a gallon of Gatorade on a raging forest fire and expecting it to work. The reality, he argues, is that the trillion-dollar package promised a lot but delivered far less than hoped. While flashy signs popped up across the nation celebrating recovery and progress, many felt the actual impact was minimal. In fact, Gutfeld jokes that some of those signs may have cost more than the temporary jobs they were meant to highlight. It was marketed as a bold economic move, but for critics, it looked more like an expensive illusion.
Act of wonderfully skewed priorities, President Obama will appear in a reality TV show in which he gets survival tips from Bear Grylls in Alaska. Funny how far that is from the streets of Chicago, outposts in need of real survival training, much like the streets of Baltimore, Milwaukee, New York, New Orleans, where citizens are ventilating.
Let's talk about healthcare-a-thon, considered the centerpiece of Obama's legacy. For some, the Affordable Care Act was a step forward. For others, it felt more like a confusing maze of rising premiums and limited options. Greg Gutfeld doesn't hold back, highlighting the rocky rollout and broken promises like the famous claim that you could keep your doctor, which many Americans later found wasn't always the case. What was marketed as affordable often left people more puzzled than protected. And then there's the Nobel Peace Prize honor that still raises eyebrows, especially considering the controversial use of drone strikes during his presidency. Gutfeld views it as a case of celebration without accountability. On top of that, the expansion of government surveillance under the NSA stands in stark contrast to the transparency Obama campaigned on. Greg calls it one of the biggest political bait-and-switch moves of the decade. Yet, with a calm delivery and polished tone, the messaging often went unquestioned, leaving many to nod along, even as personal privacy quietly slipped away.
Obama surprised fans on our new podcast by saying her pet peeve about her husband is that he's chronically late. For example, we're still waiting on him to admit he's from Kenya. And as for Barack's pet peeve about Michelle, he's mad that she keeps leaving the toilet seat up. When she cleans it. When she cleans it.
Let's rewind to the Wall Street crisis. Obama entered office as the supposed champion of the everyday American, promising to hold big banks accountable. But once in power, critics argue that the tough talk gave way to leniency. Greg Gutfeld compares it to putting a fox in charge of the hen house, then acting surprised when feathers fly. While major financial institutions recovered quickly, many working families faced foreclosures and job losses with little relief. According to Gutfeld, Wall Street walked away with record profits, while Main Street was left picking up the pieces. And when it came to media coverage, he suggests the press rarely challenged the narrative. Every move was hailed as historic, every misstep reframed as a complex strategic choice. Gutfeld even jokes that if Obama sneezed, pundits would rush to describe it as a bold new take on climate reform. In his view, it was less about transparency and more about image.
And maybe Obama had something to do with today's economy. I mean, without Obama, would we have Trump? Fact is, this debate says a lot about life today. The Trump economy is so great that Trump haters now want credit for it. Next thing you know, Obama will claim credit for putting kids in cages.
Let's talk about education. One of Obama's big promises was reforming the school system. But Greg Gutfeld argues that the strategy often looked like throwing money into bureaucratic machinery and hoping real change would trickle down. He calls it academic trickle-down economics, billions spent at the top while classrooms saw more testing and less progress. In many underfunded areas, flashy new programs and 5-year plans didn't translate into actual improvements for students. Then there's the ongoing debate around gun control. Obama frequently spoke about firearm regulations, but critics like Gutfeld couldn't help noticing the irony making those speeches while surrounded by heavy security. For Greg, the issue wasn't just about policy, but about consistency. When protection is available for some but not all, the conversation gets complicated, and while many hailed Obama as a compassionate leader on immigration, The numbers told a different story. Under his administration, deportation rates reached historic highs, the same detention centers that sparked later controversy. They were built years prior, but presentation matters, and critics say the softer tone and carefully crafted image helped keep uncomfortable facts out of the spotlight.
5 more words.
Fact: Obama's now a Republican.
Everyone knows that getting rid of the deficit will require some tough decisions. And that includes cutting back on billions of dollars in programs that a lot of people care about. But what should be easy is getting rid of the pointless waste and stupid spending that doesn't benefit.
And then there's the national debt. During Obama's time in office, it nearly doubled, and yet some still describe him as fiscally cautious. Greg Gutfeld finds that puzzling, likening it to praising someone for innovation while the house is still smoldering? Sure, Obama inherited an economic crisis, but critics argue that his solutions often added layers without addressing the core issues. When his presidency ended, he didn't fade from the spotlight, he pivoted. Now, he's taken on a more polished role, often narrating major projects and documentaries. Gutfeld jokes that if Morgan Freeman ever steps back, Obama's got the tone and the cardigan. While there's nothing wrong with a second act, it raises questions about substance versus style. When Donald Trump took office and reversed many of Obama's executive actions, the abrupt changes highlighted how temporary those policies really were. Gutfeld describes them as written on a dry erase board, dizzily wiped away, with little structural backing. The sudden reversals weren't just political, they exposed just how fragile some of those headline policies actually were.
Monday, Val Jarrett went on CNN to defend her pal, President Obama. I wonder if the president prides himself on the fact that his administration hasn't had a scandal and that he hasn't done something to embarrass himself.
The president prides himself on the fact that his administration hasn't had a scandal and that he hasn't done anything to embarrass himself.
Now that's a low bar for achievement. He hasn't embarrassed himself. But it's true, no one on his staff was caught in bed with a giraffe yet. But to agree with Val, you gotta ignore the IRS, the DOJ, Benghazi, Secret Service, Bo Bergdahl, and the secret server that led to the Orange Crush.
And then there's the message of unity, something President Obama spoke about often. But according to Greg Gutfeld, the strategy behind the scenes looked a lot more like divide and distract. While national attention was pulled toward cultural flashpoints, debates over language, identity, and symbols, Obama kept a calm distance, almost like a guest who quietly exited the room after setting off the fire alarm. Greg argues that political correctness became a tool for silencing debate, where even light disagreement was treated as extreme. But here's the twist: Obama wasn't reckless, he was meticulous. Every address, every pause, every statement seemed crafted with precision. Gutfeld calls it theater governance, more performance than policy. And as for the idea that his administration was scandal-free, Greg isn't buying it. He says it wasn't a lack of controversy, it was a lack of coverage. Many issues, critics claim, were quietly pushed aside or underreported, treated more like uncomfortable footnotes than breaking headlines.
You woke up to breaking news. Obama isn't woke at all.
This idea of purity and you're never compromised and you're always politically woke and all that stuff, you should get over that quickly. The world is messy. There are ambiguities. People who do really good stuff have flaws. Like if I tweet or hashtag about how you didn't do something right or used the wrong verb, or then I can sit back and feel pretty good about myself because, man, you see how woke I was?
Obama didn't exactly drain the swamp, some say, he just gave it a makeover. Government bureaucracy expanded, agencies grew larger, and while the departments rolled out sleek new branding, real accountability remained elusive. Greg Gutfeld jokes that under Obama, the government grew like a chia pet, just add media approval, and watch the red tape flourish. Then there's what Greg describes as presidential overconfidence. Even when policies fell flat, the messaging stayed polished. He jokes that if something went wrong, the explanation would pivot to how well the message was delivered, rather than the result itself. By the end of Obama's 2 terms, Gutfeld argues the country wasn't transformed in the way many hoped. It was economically strained, politically divided, and weighed down by grand speeches that didn't always match up with ground-level realities. Instead of lifting the nation, critics say he elevated his own brand and, yet, the applause kept rolling.
Now, technically, it's a scandal telling America you can keep your doctor, a callous deception that hurts millions. And it's a scandal of will to deny a toxic doctrine fomenting apocalyptic violence. And it's a scandal to ignore the modern Black Death, a plague currently crippling Chicago. Obama's tenure had more dirty linen than Charlie Sheen's hamper. But when your heart's in the right place, doing the wrong thing's always forgivable. And maybe scandal was just so common.
Greg Gutfeld doesn't just critique Barack Obama, he holds up a mirror to the legacy and asks, are we still buying into the image? Behind the sleek branding, the viral speeches, and the perfectly timed pauses. Greg argues what we really saw was a masterclass in presentation over performance. Hope was marketed like the latest tech launch, but when it came to execution, many policies felt like they were handed off to an under-resourced team. Greg points to the cultural shifts that followed, including the rise of identity-focused politics in schools, media, and boardrooms. While some celebrate that influence as progress, others see it as the root of growing division. Gutfeld suggests Obama's legacy isn't just about what he did, it's about what he helped normalize. From online discourse to political branding, the playbook of polished appearances and values-based messaging still echoes loudly in today's climate. Even now, Obama remains a go-to voice during moments of crisis, offering commentary that sounds soothing but, in Greg's view, sometimes glosses over deeper issues. The result? A country caught between good vibes and growing frustration. And Gutfeld, he's just getting warmed up.